Hi, hello everyone. I'm Justin. This is Koopa. Welcome to Koopa's Corner. Today I want to talk to you about WWE 2K25. It's going to be coming up next March, probably. And I want to talk a little bit about 2K24, the monetization of it, the differences between 2K23, 2K24, and potentially the differences between 2K24 and 2K25. Now, for 2K24, the monetization was absolutely garbage. It was completely trash. Most of you playing the game, I'm sure you already know this. Yet we continue to buy the game and we continue to play it, and I'm sure 2K25 will be no different. However, there's too much going on right now, right? We're paying $70, $100, $120 for this game, depending on if we got the base, the deluxe, the 40 years of WrestleMania. And yet, there are still dozens of characters that we don't get, that are not included. If I'm paying $120 for, the top tier version of this game, with a season pass, with all of the DLC, I don't want to see surprise DLC dropped like this Bray Wyatt pack that just dropped. That's not included. What did I pay that kind of money for if you're going to charge me another $10 for it? I don't like seeing all of these persona cards in my faction mode. What did I pay all of this money for you to include dozens of characters in my faction mode that I don't have access to, that I have to pay to get? And there are certainly accounts out there of people who have spent hundreds of dollars to get these characters. Me, myself, I've just let them go. The ones that I can't get for free, I've just let them go and I don't have them. I didn't spend any extra money in my faction. Now, would I be willing to if I didn't spend $120 on, a top tier version of this game? Yeah, probably. What's the difference between buying that and buying the season pass or the deluxe edition? But even the base game at $70, I'm not willing to do that. If you want to make this a live service game, then make it a live service game. Give us the base game for free and monetize your characters like that, like so many other live service games do. But this is supposed to be all inclusive. That's why we're spending $120 at the top tier of this game. And so it kind of begs the question, right? How valuable is it? 2K is going to argue that you get, a roster of X amount of superstars, you get X amount of match types, you've got showcase mode, universe mode, GM mode, you've got the most in-depth creation suite in probably all of video games, that there's value there. But my counter argument, to a degree, is it's only as valuable as the changes between 2K23 and 2K24. If you've already spent that money on the base game for last year's version of the game, then it is not super valuable to have all of those things. It's only as valuable as the changes you make in between games. And that is something that happens when you have an annual release, right? You could have 2K22, and if the differences aren't that big, it still wouldn't be worth buying 2K24. So looking ahead to 2K25, it feels unfortunately like we're going to get more of the same. They're not going to change it because they are making a shit ton of money this way. It just sucks. That's all. Like, there's no way around it. If you want to play, you're going to pay. And the WWE fan base, the WWE universe, is one of the more rabid fan bases in the world. They're one of the more passionate fan bases in the world. And we continue to dish out this money year in and year out. So before we buy 2K25, we have to stop. We have to ask ourselves, what are the differences going to be between 2K24 and 2K25? That's where the value is. For somebody like me, and for most of you who already own 2K24 or 2K23 or 2K22, how different is next year's game? Because if it's just a few updated attires, a handful of new superstars, maybe there's some value in that, right? But if it's just a little bit of an update to the roster, there's very little value in that. And there's very little reason to buy the next installment of the game. Now, if you go online onto, any number of, places where the community hangs out and you get to talking, what do people want to see? And you always see the same. I want them to fix universe mode. I want them to combine universe mode and GM mode. Oh, I hate showcase. I hate the slingshot technology. And they ask for these big, drastic changes, and they're well within their right to do so. It just 2K is not going to deliver on that. It's the problem, right? They're not going to rewrite the game from scratch. So I've come up with a few things that I'd like to see in the next edition of the game to add a little bit of value. They're small things, quality of life things, without drastically rewriting the game. And don't get me wrong, some of those things need fixing. The slingshot technology in showcase mode is not a bad idea, but when commentary, music, half the logos in the video clip are blurred out and there's so much censoring going on, it really takes you out of the moment. If you can't play the clip in full, maybe don't do it. So again, there are some very big, very drastic things that should be addressed. The online stability was absolutely atrocious. Universe mode was so buggy and kept crashing and kept crashing and kept crashing. These things all could and should be addressed as we move forward. But again, I want to backtrack. I've sort of went on a tangent here. I've come up with a list of just some small quality of life changes that I think would really add value to next year's game. So, first of all, one thing I was a really big fan of this year was how many generic options there were in Create an Entrance. Entrance move sets and entrance videos and generic music. I like there being generic stuff for my Create a Wrestlers. I don't like always having a Create a Wrestler with someone else's logo right on the screen. It takes away from it. It really does. So that is a small thing. I would like to see them increase the number of generic entrances, generic movesets, generic music, generic trons. Give me more generic clothing options and hair options and things in Create a Moveset and Create a Wrestler that aren't necessarily somebody else's piece that's just thrown in there for you to use a different way. So that's one thing. I think another thing, a really big thing, are 5-man entrances. Or even 6-man entrances, right? I understand that the game is limited and you can only really have 4-on-4. You can have up to 8. But why not give me a 5-on-3 handicap match? Or at least allow the entrance to play out like a cutscene, and then one of the characters can walk away. Let them make their entrance together. Factions have always been a huge thing in the WWE. And currently, the Bloodline and the Judgment Day are the two biggest stories going on. And it's not new. These two factions have been running the WWE for the past few years. Let me create my own stables and have faction warfare and have a 5-man entrance. That is, I think, a really big thing missing in this game, even though it's kind of a small thing. One thing that I really like to see is a search bar in Create a Moveset. I love the amount of options that we have in Create a Moveset, but sometimes it's really difficult to find things. And over the years, things have been renamed, things have been tweaked, and things have been dropped. One of my creator wrestlers used the Judgment Slam as his finisher since, I don't know, SmackDown versus Raw 2006. And all of a sudden, 2-3 years ago, it just disappeared from the game. There have been other moves that have changed the name. Somebody else is using them, they call it something else, they change the name in the game. You can't always find what you're looking for. Even with the filter options, you just have to sort through so many options. And again, that's not a bad thing. But just give me a little search bar. Let me type in suplex. And it eliminates anything without suplex in its name. Now all of a sudden I only have to look through, dozens of options as opposed to hundreds of them. I think that is a small quality of life change that would not be that difficult for them to add in, that would create and add immense value in the next edition of the game. Another thing I'd like to see, and maybe this is just me, again, I'm sort of creating my own list here. These are not things I really see online. The things I see online are bigger asks. I'd like to see an open challenge or a mystery opponent type deal where I can select a character randomly without it just popping up then before I start the match. I mean, sure, that's fine for some occasions, right? But I'd like to go into like an open challenge mode and not know who the opponent is going to be until the music hits. So when you have the match card load up on the screen, you've got your character here, whether you're playing, as The Undertaker or John Cena or one of your cause, and then you've got the blank, render on that side, the vacant render on that side. I don't want it to populate with the character prior to that entrance music being hit. It's a very little thing. But if you are trying to set up a mystery opponent or have an open challenge, it can really take you out of it knowing who's about to come out. There's value in that. There's value in that. I think another thing, instead of special guest referee being its own separate match type like it was in 2K24, which they made a big deal about it coming back, right? It should not be its own separate match type. It should be a toggle for any match. You just toggle on special referee, select your referee. And they can sort of have that little extra dynamic on any other match that's there. So that's, another thing that I think would really add value, because as much fun as special guest referee is, I'd love to do it inside of a steel cage or a Hell in a Cell. If there's no disqualification, then maybe I don't have to be as non-biased, right? I can attack somebody and get away with it if I want. I just want to be there. I don't necessarily want to have to balance that. Oh, is everyone upset? Who's upset? Oh, am I going to get kicked out and the real referee going to be brought in? That was cool and all. But let me just be in the match. Let me give both superstars a finisher and, play it completely biased and completely screwed as a referee if I want to. Again, that's something that they could simply just put on as a toggle. You can select your referee from the list of other referees, because I always pick Charles Robinson. So you're allowed to pick the referee. So why not just put special guest referee as an option there? Even if it wasn't the full roster, right? Why not give me some special guest referees to play as there? Or hell, make Charles Robinson, playable, or any of the referees there playable. I don't have to be necessarily a special guest referee if I can just play as the referee for the match. So those are a few small things, and obviously, roster updates. I don't want to talk too much about roster. You hear a lot of it. People bitch and moan about, oh, so-and-so from NXT was left off. So what? Right? Like, there's only so much they can do with regard to legends, right? It depends on who's signed a Legends deal, who's, under contract, whose contract has expired. They only have access to the people that they have access to. So yeah, it'd be cool to have a more in-depth roster, but if they don't have the people in real life signed, then they don't have the people in real life signed. I want to see the roster, the main roster, as up to date as possible. Handful of NXT superstars, at least the ones that have been there for a while. I don't need every single person who wrestles in NXT to be in there. Let's not kid ourselves. Even though the people that like NXT tend to be diehards, NXT is the minor leagues. Not everybody watches NXT. The ratings are much lower than Raw and SmackDown. Not everybody knows those superstars. There's a lot less value in NXT superstars as members of the roster than there are for legends. So there should be a good handful. The core of NXT TV should be represented. The people who have been on TV for a while. And there are people in the game. Like in 24, there were a lot of NXT superstars in the game. Roxanne Perez is a great example. She's someone who's been a staple of NXT television. Cora Jade is another one. There are a good handful of superstars who've been in NXT for a while, who have been a staple in NXT television. Those are the ones who should be included. Now, me personally, I'm not an NXT guy. So yeah, roster updates. Do what you can. We expect to see some updated rosters, but again, that's not going to necessarily really change too much, because most of the people who were under contract last year are probably under contract this year. The few people that they've signed to Legends deals since then, or signed, I guess, to NXT since then, could be, additions to the game. I think something that's a little bit more likely are match types. You could add match types. That's not something that, you have to worry about who's under contract. You have a lot more freedom with adding match types. And we've had a lot of match types in the past that have disappeared. Buried Alive matches. Inferno matches. 3 Stages of Hell. There are a couple of examples. We could add a strap match, because we had such a big strap match this year between CM Punk and Drew McIntyre. So you could definitely add some match types to add value to the game. Now, one really big mode I want to see added in, and this is probably the biggest ask I'm going to have. It's an entire mode. But I'm asking it because we've had it in previous games and they took it away. I want to see the return of Create a Finisher. It doesn't have to be a crazy, in-depth, finish from any which way. It can be, a standard front-facing grapple. But it was a really cool mode. And it added a lot of personality, and it added a lot of customization to your cause. It gave them identity in a way that just copying other finishers doesn't always do. So yeah, I know this was just a very ranty video, but I wanted to talk about 2K25 a little bit as we, approach the end of the year. or at least the end of the life cycle for 2K24, having just had, that Global Superstars pack come out recently, the Bray Wyatt pack come out recently. We're getting there. So let me know what you think. What do you guys want to see added? Do these little quality of life changes add value for you? Let me know. And thanks for watching. See you in the next one.